OGL 1.1? Oh my, Darrington Press license. In exchange for allowing you to exercise the right, you waive any and all claims for copyright infringement. Wait. So if I make content for your game, you can make your own copy of it and sell my work? And you don't have to give me any credit? Or pay me anything? And I'm supposed to believe that you're just not gonna do that on goodwill? Wow, that's real up. Whoever penned this was obviously a who didn't learn a single fucking lesson from the OGL. This is a dog license. And if you're someone who loves gaming, support third-party creators. If you are a third-party creator, stay far away from Darrington Press games, which I can't even believe I'm saying. Holy every other RPG dev is out here up, and Darrington Press,
you were the chosen one. It was said that you would destroy the suits, not join them.
But here we are. I guess it's true what they say.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Hey everybody, it's the Brewmaster here. If this is your first time to the channel, then welcome. And to you over 8,000 ass-kicking hellions and the 52% who haven't subscribed yet, hey, it's great to see you again, even though we're meeting on a sad occasion. Because today is the day the Darrington Press decided that whole OGL debacle, OGL 1.1, I guess that wasn't really so bad, was it? I'm putting up the license for you guys to see now, but if you read it, and I do encourage you to, you will see that it is egregious. So look at it, please. However, TLDR is, they can take your stuff and sell their own version. If you make content, then you forever waive any rights to claim that your content has been infringed upon, even in the future, even if Darrington Press has blatantly ripped you off. And to be clear, Encounter is not a rage bait channel. If this were the only issues with the license, then we wouldn't even be making this video, but it gets much worse and the implications are dire. Because yeah, DRP can outright exploit materials that are similar to yours and you forever waive your right to sue them for infringement, but maybe you're okay with this and don't actually see this to be an issue. But what if DRP changes the license to something you don't consent to? Well, you better be quick, because per 11.1, they don't need to notify you specifically of any license changes. Per 11.2, if you unknowingly sell content under the new license, well, you automatically consent and are subject to that license, even if it were to include something like newly added fees. 11.3, you are actively working on content and the license changes, yeah, you can publish under the old license, but if you want to update your work at all future content's got to be under the new license, which means DRP has got you by the balls. But maybe you like being had by the balls. Section 9 makes it clear that this is not a perpetual license. If you agree to this, then you agree to taking the risk of having all of your effort, all your blood, sweat, and tears that you put into your content wiped away clean in an instant, which makes this license extremely risky, especially in the long term as Darrington Press grows as a company and eventually exchanges hands. The fact that corporations cannot be trusted in the long term is actually precisely why the original authors of OGL 1.0 went out of their way to make sure that that license, or they tried to make sure that that license was perpetual. They knew eventually that Hasbro would try to kill it, and they did. And maybe this would sting less if not for the extra effort that DRP requires you to put into your work to publish with this license. 4.2, they require you to brand your work with their logo at all times and even read the license aloud in its entirety if you're running a podcast, every single episode. What this does is at once brands you as Daggerheart's serf, bound to this license in its entirety. This also sets a rather ridiculous precedent that most creators won't follow, which means that in the future, if DRP ever decides to enforce this license or crack down, the impact will be great. They may be able to seek financial damages from a large number of creators, and the possibility of this, while small, still exists, and that should make you uncomfortable. But maybe this isn't even a deal breaker for you. Maybe you think it's a 1 in a million chance that DRP ever violates this license and harms its creators. Then in that 1 in a million chance that a creator actually has a good and fair case against DRP, such that a lawyer actually takes this case to trial and it makes it all the way to court, then Section 8 still ensures that you will never ever be able to actually practically sue DRP, even when they're in the wrong. Why? Because in Section 8, you agree to indemnify, which means basically pay for all of the legal fees for both yourself and DRP in the event that you rightfully sue them. And that's a trap, because realistically, is a small-time creator going to be able to pay for their own lawyers and DRP's lawyers for the entire duration of this case, which could stretch out to years if DRP delayed? No. they're not going to be able to afford that. So this license is bulletproof against you. You waive your right to basically sue, and even in the 1 in a million chance that you could rightfully sue them, it will still be on your dime. One of these things by itself is not worth the second glance. All of these things together is a blatant anti-community move, and frankly is shameful to see coming from Daggerheart. But now, just like Hasbro tried to, and just like every other company is, Darrington Press has positioned themselves firmly against their own community. And if I just wanted to make D&D content, it's as simple as just using the OGL, or now even the Creative Commons license. But if I wanted to make content for Daggerheart,
spread your cheeks and lift your sack. Like, what the fuck?
Now, I also love too here in their license how Darrington Press refuses to use DP, which is their actual proper initials in this document, choosing DRP instead. And I guess that's because they didn't want to be associated with the other DP, if you know what I mean. But I don't even know why, because I would consider that to be a positive association. Besides, now their acronym just spells DERP, which isn't really any better, but I suppose is a much better description, very apt for what this license is, a big old DERP. Bob Worldbuilder actually released his own video on this topic, and I have to say that while I agree with 90% of what he says, that for the first time ever being subbed to his channel for years, I can vehemently say that I disagree with some of his points. And to be clear, Bob is a friend of this channel. We've exchanged maybe like one friendly email behind the scenes, and I generally agree with pretty much everything he covers. But this viewpoint is one that I think could actually be dangerous to the community. In a previous video, he seemed to acknowledge the problem.
It's a little disappointing that Daggerheart didn't learn from D&D's recent license controversy and just use Creative Commons or even follow Shadowdark with a tiny license in the book. Instead, you gotta search online for an 8-page PDF of legal jargon with some sections about termination that my non-lawyer brain raises an eyebrow at.
Now it seems that the tone has shifted, and I'm not exactly sure why.
No one needs to grab a pitchfork here, but if you're going to, at least point it at the few parts of this license that could harm the people using it and the game's community, instead of at one section that is both completely standard and only harmful in a ridiculous, hypothetical situation.
I understand where Bob is coming from. He's literally fed up with the ceaseless online negativity which the algorithm feeds on. So Bob's intent, as always, is pure, but this license in its current state is anything but. Once you see the red flags, saying that the danger is
completely hypothetical. Hypothetical, only harmful in a ridiculous, hypothetical situation.
And is therefore not really a danger, is simply a poor reason to ignore the red flags. Imagine if airplanes were designed with that logic. That's like saying that getting shot is only a hypothetical threat, so loaded guns aren't dangerous. But that's ridiculous, because everybody knows that loaded guns are dangerous, even in the event that the wielder is an expert at gun safety. And from all the issues that I just pointed out, I believe that that's exactly what this license is, a loaded gun. DRP might not misuse, abuse, or mishandle it now, but if or when they ever do, somebody's gonna get hurt. Bob goes on to point out yet another serious concern with the license, only to completely hand wave it.
And we can take a step back. There are two parts of this license I've since become aware of that actually seem kind of predatory and like a real hindrance to the game. You must pay Darrington Press's legal fees should a lawsuit arise. That is highly unusual, because typically each side would just pay their own fees as you'd expect, but still, never gonna happen.
Never gonna happen. So, you're sure this is safe?
Don't worry, I have a dangerometer that lets us know if
The license is abusable.
What happens if
They abuse the license.
I don't know, but that'll never happen.
Never gonna happen.
I know what you did. You're a damn terrorist. All right, just get the hell out of here. I got a goddamn pen.
And again, he points out the same issue that I had with 4.2.
I'm not aware of any other TTRPG requiring that level of distinction, but it's not a deal breaker, because I know for a fact that 99% of people making Daggerheart videos and podcasts will not follow those instructions. And then Darrington Press is not going to cease and desist hundreds of creators, so these requirements won't be enforced, and therefore they won't be enforceable if Darrington suddenly decided to enforce them.
While I get what he's saying, the stance he's taking contradicts history. Gaming companies just simply don't care if the changes that they make impact hundreds or thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of creators. Hasbro literally just threatened the livelihoods of thousands of creators with the OGL changes 2 years ago. If people are concerned, then that's because there's historical precedent to be. And it's not just Hasbro. Many companies across the gaming and entertainment sphere in general have predatory licenses, or else they just shut down third-party content altogether of any kind. So to think that DRP could become one of those companies is just not outside the realm of possibility, given how this license is written. We cannot give them the pass on this because, frankly, DRP should be above reproach in this regard, and they chose not to be. Bob implies that his gut impulse was a bad thing, but that gut instinct, the one that you admit is literally based on past experience, should be listened to. This is why history repeats itself, because we don't learn from it. DRP did not learn from the history of the OGL. And you, Bob, develop that gut instinct from hard-earned experience. When it raises alarm, listen to it, don't ignore it. Bob also implies that because DRP is being shitty openly instead of behind closed doors, that this is somehow more acceptable. Bad is bad, transparent or not. Simply being open about the fact that you're willingly giving yourself multiple means of harming your community, even though DRP has no plans of doing that at this time, that doesn't make it okay. You do not get a pass from the Brewmaster for that. Because the fact of the matter is, if DRP wanted to be the most community friendly that they could be, they would have just put their SRD in the Creative Commons, or else made it an actually open perpetual license. And they did neither, because they're not interested in being community friendly, or if they are, then it's obviously not a top priority. And simply saying
Never gonna happen.
is simply too naive. Outrage is beneath you, because that implies that you're not using logic. But blind naivety, to me, is the opposite end of the same spectrum. You gotta meet somewhere in the middle, see things for what they are and not really what we want them to be. If cooler heads prevail though, then I will have to agree with Bob that the current iteration of DRP under Matt Mercer will unlikely ever abuse this license. But Hasbro didn't abuse the OGL right away either. So my issue with DRP's license isn't what Matt Mercer will do to people. It's what DRP as a corporation will do 20 years from now, when the original creators no longer work there. This license is not scary because Matt Mercer is going to steal people's work, but because it absolutely fails to protect its creators in the long term, or really at all. It shows little to no desire to foster a long-term relationship with its creators. It leaves us completely vulnerable to the whims of whatever greedy shareholders want to do in the future, and that's just a terrible idea. Now let's get this out of the way. I don't actually have any problem with any corporation, any company protecting the intellectual property that they've come up with and that they own. That's not my issue. And I also don't have an issue with companies making money. Obviously, you got to feed the beast. You need revenue, or you don't have a company. You don't have a game. You don't have Daggerheart. But there's a difference between protecting yourself and preying on your community. There has to be a way to both provide a license that protects your future intellectual property without giving you carte blanche to steal from your community with no legal repercussions. And when companies do this, it's always the same pervasive question, which is why? Why would you treat your own community this way?
Why? Because fuck them, that's why.
Or did not Darrington Press forget that the reason why they got this huge push of support is because of the OGL scandal, because of the fact that people wanted Matt Mercer to succeed despite the fact that Hasbro tried to screw him. But you start your company, you make a few $1 million, and now when you come out with your own game, you just turn around and do the exact same thing? Despicable. So how do you even release a license this aggressive, this hostile of a tone? Not by accident, that's how. And what makes this even more egregious, Matt Mercer? You started off as a third-party content creator, and now you're flipping the bird to other third-party content creators. Do you realize that if D&D had this license instead of the OGL, that the Critical Role show would never have been a show? As soon as it started making money, Hasbro, with this license, could have stole the idea of the Critical Role show, made their own show called, I don't know, Critical Roles, but they make it with 2 L's instead of roll with R-O-L-E. And all of a sudden you have Hasbro's Dungeons and Dragons Critical Roles. And that's what everybody would be watching. Nobody would even heard of Matt Mercer, his team. They could have been snuffed before they even got momentum. And that's what this license is going to do to future creators. Though Bob Worldbuilder would disagree.
If Darrington Press publishes something that happens to be similar to that Daggerheart Ancestry you published on DriveThruRPG and made $50 on, you can't sue them or claim that they stole your work. Because they didn't steal your work, man. This is the most foolish hypothetical argument that could only come from people who I guess believe that they will design something so amazing that Darrington Press, or in this pipe dream, probably Matt Mercer himself, will find it online and be so stunned by the quality of the design that he copies and pastes it from that silly peasant's PDF, which probably missing the proper logos and attribution, then sell it himself for millions of dollars that should have been theirs. That ridiculous scenario is being feverishly argued about in comment sections and forums because a handful of creators made it seem like an actual problem.
I can literally feel Bob's frustration with the trolls radiating through this video. But again, I do feel like this statement is very dismissive and doesn't speak to the reality of the world that we live in, because the RPG community is enormous. The Daggerheart community is large as well. My opinion is this: with all the newbies coming into the hobby, who's to say who the next Mike Mearls will be? The next Jeremy Crawford or Chris Perkins, the next Monty Cook, even the next Matt Mercer. The shit that you're homebrewing up in your basement right now might actually be the next big thing in gaming. Just like so many other designers starting out, even the creators of D&D, just third-party creators for the popular word games at the time. So implying that a creator shouldn't be worried about having their work stolen just because it only made $50, or to imply that no third-party creator could ever release content good enough for DRP to actually want to use, does feel insulting to the up-and-coming talent who might literally be cutting their teeth on this game. Now, all of that said, is the DRP license worse than OGL 1.1? Absolutely not. Are you crazy? OGL 1.1 would have destroyed the livelihoods of thousands of people, and this is nowhere near that even. However, OGL 1.1 was not so dissimilar to this in practical terms, because the end result is still a system where a large company can steal, reproduce, and farm your content without giving you any credit or any pay. And what I'm gonna say next will probably shock you. There is a real OGL debacle happening in the entire RPG industry, in that not a single gaming company that I know has a functional third-party license. Not a single one, except for Shadow Dark and Pathfinder, which do have usable licenses but still aren't so open that they're in the Creative Commons. And that might surprise you, but I love Modifius games. I love Modifius games. But look at this egregious license. Under the Modifius license, they will take 50% of any money that you make. And who owns the work that you make with this license? Your work is owned in full by Modifius. So what? They're going to take 50% of your profit, 100% of the ownership, but you're supposed to make content for that and be okay with it. And this is why you don't see anybody making third-party content for 2D20 games, if you wondered, Modifius. I love Cyberpunk, but Talsorian Games does not have a usable license. The systems that I make for that game are literally mind-blowing, complete game changers, but I will never publish them under this license, which specifies that anything that you ever come out with has to be 100% free. You can't come out with any fan-made content for Cyberpunk and sell it, which is again why you don't see any nice fan-made content for Cyberpunk Red. You just simply don't see it. Yeah, you'll see some cobbled together stuff on Reddit, but nothing near the fidelity of what you're going to see on the front page of DriveThruRPG or the front page of the DM's Guild. And I'm not picking on these companies specifically. As you look at the licenses across all these gaming companies, you're going to see that even some small creators that you thought were pretty consumer friendly have absolutely garbage licenses when it comes to working with third-party creators. And then we always say, oh, D&D, oh, it's the big one. Oh, D&D is the one that everybody defers to. D&D is the default. We don't want it to be this way. People should know more other games exist. Yeah, but do you think that it's a coincidence that the only game with a truly open license that allows you to just make content and sell it, you ain't got to pay D&D nothing, you don't have to fuck with Hasbro, you ain't got to worry about them, that's the game that's the most popular? It's a pure numbers game. It's all about exposure. D&D has way more content, and thus it's way more popular. Pathfinder 2 has an open license, but guess what? It's the second most popular roleplay game. Do you think that's a coincidence? So if we want to see more deserving games at the forefront, then you small indie publishers you smaller gaming companies, because I know Darrington Press isn't as large as Hasbro, but they're still worth millions. You need to allow your community to work with you. You need your community and the passion that they bring, because they are working for free. They are literally giving you free advertising. When they come out with a module that is so amazing that everybody feels like they have to play it, and everybody goes out and buys the game so they can play that module, you just got free advertising. You just made money off of that creator without having to screw that creator. So if you small developers, you small publishers want the right to exist beside the giant, then you need to allow your communities to create without trying to sneakily conscript them into what amounts to basically modern day corporatocratic serfdom. And this is the real OGL scandal. D&D actually really still is the most community friendly license of any publisher on the market right now. Tell me in the comments if you know of any publishers, third party, first party, small, large, that have a license that is as open as D&D. Please let me know in the comment, because I would love to promote those companies. Now, I'm not proposing a boycott or anything like that, but I do want to raise the discussion. Can we not, as a community, actually open it up? Not have open licenses in name only, but in function and in practical use. Is it an open license? I would say Darrington Press, no, this is not. Which is why when I release my own systems, I still do so with the OGL, with Creative Commons, because it allows me to release amazing content like the Face of Pain system, which adds a full critical hit system with charts and everything to D&D 5e. Third-party creators are ravenous about the games that they like, and they are definitely going to be creating for this game. And this license has positioned Darrington Press, has positioned Derp in the exact position that they need to be in to, in their own words right here, exploit the situation. Exploitation is not something that you do for someone, it's something that you do to someone. And so this is very clear what they have in mind, and I think that they should be ashamed of themselves. If you agree, then please do like, subscribe, and support the Patreon, where we release content that you can use, and I promise you, we will not sue you. Shit, maybe you do find one of our systems so compelling that you build a whole game on top of it. I would love to play it. And I know a whole lot of companies will be cringing at the idea, especially now where they don't sell anything. Everything is just you buying a temporary license to watch stuff on TV or to play games. Everything is temporary. You can't own anything. Well, we don't believe in that. We believe that when you spend money on it, it's yours. And that when a good idea catches on and proliferates, it literally just grows the community. That is a good thing. It's not bad. It's not money out of our pocket. It's more people in our hobby, which is more money for all of us, if that makes any sense. Well, that's all I got for you today. Like and subscribe if you did like it. Of course, dislike it if you didn't. Peace.